I'm really proud to be the part of the conference, and I hope to enjoy the conference as I'm doing. It's a special place for me to be after Michael, and at the same time it's challenging for me. So, maybe you are wondering why I would like to talk about this topic. Well, non-functional testing is usually and slightly removed to the side. Even if this conference, we are struggling not to be in the smallest room. And I'm wondering why is that like that? Let's do it in the other way around. So if you are end user, and for example, you are going to travel, you are going to book your hotel, flight, you are happy, and going to a website. The layout is nice and shiny, there's a lot of features, everything works fine. And you click and wait. If you are from the IT world, you will wait, still wait, but if you're not, you will click again and click again, meaning that if you're clicking, that will be faster. Probably and likely your next action will be that you click on competition.com. If you are talking about security, did you remember, for example, the affair Ashley Madison? People having fun, everything was great till the day that the data of users were published and everything went public. So the accounts, transaction details, and of course the secret relationship. So, do you think that's important? I think yes. And that's one of the reasons. The another, when we are talking about continuous delivery deployment, it's almost related to functional testing. So I'm asking myself, why not do it for non-functional testing as well? So that's motivating and inspiring question for me for this presentation. Since before being a fair player for non-functional testing, I'm keen on test automation. And since 2007, when I joined Liva9 Services, I have been working on different projects from various domains, testing and defining the test architecture. Recently, I have found it inspiring to be part of the international conference. About the agenda, we will talk about non-functional testing at DevOps speed. I will tell you how it's possible to measure end-user experience in a continuous process, how we can have secure development, life cycle, and at the end, I'd like to summarize the key points. So, how many of you have heard about the cathedral approach? Nobody, even better. So, cathedral and software are much more the same. Firstly, we build them, then we pray. That's something more or less the same as reactive approach. So, if you start to talk about or doing your non-functional testing, on production or nearby production, I advise you better pray, not test at that moment. Scott Berber said that non-functional testing, if you are trying to conducting the non-functional testing at the conclusion of your system or a conclusion of functional testing, is like how that you are conducting diagnostic blood test on a patient who is already dead. So there is no sense. We already agreed that non-functional tests are left out of the process. And I will ask myself the reason, and what I think is that maybe people know little about security and performance. And the companies rely on specialized companies that are too expensive or have a few experts. So it's some kind of bottleneck in a team. And And usually testing is, even if it's done before production, it's stuck in waterfall world. And the feedback is too late. The later we do that non-functional testing, even the same as functional testing, the more extensive rework is needed. So we should take it maybe seriously than functional testing, because sometimes complete architecture needs to be changed to fix some performance issue, for example. And the key question is, can non-functional testing fit in DevOps environment? And the answer is yes. Performance and security testing are entirely possible at DevOps speed. The solution to be part of rapid iterations, quickly deployed to production through continuous pipeline, we need to have a solution that's lightweight, loosely coupled, and extensible. So the next question that's challenging me is how we can measure end user experience. But firstly, let's understand what end user experience is. So this number can help us to set common performance goal, and this goal is remain constant because it's depending on our physiology and our reaction time, never regardless of type of application or medium. At the same time, that explains the unofficial rule of thumb in a web performance community to render page or provided very first the visual content to the user under 250 milliseconds. Wow, you may think that's impressive and not so easy achievable. However, performance is not just milliseconds, megabytes, and frames. It's how end user perceives your application. And all these measurements should be translated in end user experience. And that's the place that client-side performance testing can help us. The type of testing gives us a real status what's going on for the end user. And on this slide, you will see the Selenium. And who was attending the previous session that or workshop that Michael held, Michael told us performance and Selenium doesn't go together. But what's the difference? That these things that I'm talking about is about performance tracking. There is no load. So Michael suggested us not do the load with the Selenium testing. But I will explain my solution, and that's how about we can track the performance on the same level to see if our performance metrics are decreasing or increasing, and have it stable for every build. Of course, possible if it can be better, that's the best option. So I have using Selenium scripts. The reason why is that they are simulating end user sections, and they are running for every build. So I just reuse them. And with very minimal tweaks, that's possibility that can help us to have that metrics about end user experience. So the next step is that Firefox is used, and Firefox extension, Firebug, and net export to export HAR file, or HTTP archive file. Do you know what this file is? Is there anybody that have heard about that? No. So the HAR file is JSON format with a list of loaded pages and list of entries for requested resources for every page. And that helps us to understand the end user experience. So I had all that metrics in a file, and yeah, I thought it's not like performance tracking or testing, so it's not easy to analyze. And I would like at the beginning that I start, I imagined that I have some graph. That's something that's more or less usual for all performance tools. So I use Graphite to export that matrix to Grafana. Graphite is open source tool for storing metrics, and Grafana helps us to visualize them. And there is a graph. So that's the result of that testing. And you can see the different metrics. I have chosen to have block time, receive time for some resources, on content load, that's the on-load and on-content load for pages. And that's something that's actually I provided from that HAR file. The matrix are actually, because the Selenium scripts are running for every build, they are a result for several builds. And at some point, you can see there that there is increase. In our reality, that was problem about SQL script. We fixed it, and after even do some kind of optimization, and after that was better. So if you see that your problem is there, fix it as soon as possible. So even you can set the alert on your build server to send you email if your metrics are larger than your threshold. What about security? Can we have security report for every build? What does this really mean in practice? We need to automate our manual script, and how can we do that? That's the next challenge that I had, and I started to investigate OWASP Z-ATAC proxy or ZEP. ZEP can be controlled on automated manner and therefore suitable for automation testing. The major idea behind that tool that there is a predefined vulnerabilities. The tool, the search pattern, change the values and try to break the application. A few information for those who are not familiar with ZEP. ZEP is an open source project forked from Paros proxy. It's one of the OWASP flagship project. The team lead is Simon Bennett from Mozilla security team. It's actively maintained, what's very important, by hundreds of international volunteers, and it's a cross-platform tool. What was very important for my criteria, that's voted as the best security tool for 2050 by visitors, by Tools Watch visitors. About the main feature, there is a spider to discover the content. ZEP can act as a proxy, intercepting and analyzing the result, and then run the scanners. Passive scanner examine the application, while active scanners attack the application. The other tool like fuzzing, brute force, port scanner, and many other features try to find vulnerabilities that the scanners couldn't find. Based on the alert, as a very important feature is generating the report that we are looking for. And again, one more challenge. How integrate ZAP in a build tool, in a build server? So, for those of you who are using Jenkins, you are lucky. There is a Jenkins plugin that can integrate ZAP to the build. But my build server was Bamboo, And I needed to investigate a little bit more, and there is a ZAP Maven plugin that can integrate ZAP with Maven. And now, who know about Maven, you will understand that there is a pre-integration phase, and there the ZAP is started. The Selenium scripts are running. After that, in post-integration phase, the ZAP attacks the application and generate report. One more thing about, again, Selenium here. It helps ZAP to explore application in a realistic way. So it helps and provides ZAP with a real data. In some way, teach application. So that's the reason why we have the running Selenium script in the middle. Without that, it's possible, but confidence of our issue and the possibility to find some realistic issue is less. Finally, there is a report. For every alert, there is several very important details. For example, description, solution. So you have the issue, you can immediately find the solution. It helps actually in some way to teach to learn security and teach the team about the security. There's a reference so that you can see about that on the OWASP site. There is confidence. It's not that every alert will be through. At the beginning, you will have a list of false positive, and you will need to configure ZAP to eliminate it. And level of risk. What is on my to-do list, it's, from the functional point of view, it's not important, but if you're working with that, there is a room for improvement about layout. That a report should be refactored, and that should be nice to have some kind of filter that you can filter and group the issue per severity. But how to stay secure? We have this report. Is it enough? It's a good start, but what's really recommended that you use it in a regular base. You will find something that can surprise you. Periodically, you will need someone who is security-trained architect to review your report and actually teach you how to continue that, teach your team. And before major release, still penetration testing is recommended, which is complementary to this approach. So automation testing couldn't be completely enough. As for every automation, some kind of manual human who will look there, and manual testing, it's always advice. What I would like that you remember from this session, non-functional testing should be included in the continuous process as well as functional testing. DevOps is the industry direction, and we couldn't just eliminate that. As for every continuous process, automate it as much as possible, fail fast, fail as soon as possible, and correct you. And that's some kind of the message at the end. Remember that non-functional testing, performance, and security is not just for Christmas when you expected that your users in a number are increasing. It's not a checklist, it's a continuous process. So I'm ready for question, and thank you for your attention.
Approved or not, but I have a question, yes. So the first one is, from Slido. What kind of infrastructure is needed to have proper performance measurements and results?
Actually, it's not what I try to explain. It's not that you're measuring something. It's more about comparing. It's very important that when you are running the build, that your next build not decreasing the values. And if yes, if there is a crease, look immediately there. You will probably find the error more easier than later on. But for performance, really measurement and testing and somehow to establishing threshold, you will need completely production-like environment and setting production requirement. And yeah, see, that's my threshold. And that threshold will be compared with this testing, for example, or you can see if you are not ideal environment where it's realistic for your build and what's not acceptable by you. So it's about tracking.
I think the next question is connected with that. What are the risks running performance tests on dev environments?
If you are running nightly, there is no risk. So usually what my team is doing at the morning when we arrive at work, we see the result. So there is no sense to running it during the day. So that's how we set up at the end, about the security and about the performance. Run it nightly and check in early morning.
Thank you. So I'd like to know, since you're using the Selenium script, how are you able, without the load, without generation of the load, assess the limits that the application or whatever you're testing has?
I have several slides there about implementation. I just skip it because of limited time. So I can show you after that. You really have that matrix in your code. And you always, for example, can assert that your matrix should be not larger than. So that's a way about that. So you really in your code have every matrix that you are sending to Grafana. And you control them.
Have you tried this performance test in Jenkins?
Not just because of setup of my project. It's not. I think that even will be easier because somehow I'm more familiar with Jenkins, but at that project I'm working with Bamboo, so there is no difference, I would say. About the integration, about the performance, everything is code whenever you're running it. About the security, I explained the difference. So both of them are Maven project, and I'm running from the build server as any Maven project.
Okay, next one. Have you considered InfluxDB instead of Graphite?
No, just because my time was limited as usual, and I'm satisfied with Grafana. And I heard about some kind of recommendation from the people that are using it from my company. So probably everything what working is fine with visualization and that can show the result, it's fair enough.